Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 18th April 2026. Today again we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and the Indian Express newspapers which are relevant for your examination. In the initial two topics, we have included two mains practice questions which will be useful for your upcoming mains examination. In our analysis section, in our first topic, we'll try to understand why India slipped to being the sixth largest economy as per the latest data from IMF. Then in our second topic, we'll look into various aspects of the debate around the women reservation in Parliament. Thereafter, keeping in mind the upcoming prelims examination 2026, we will discuss 5 important prelims pointers that will be highly useful for your upcoming prelims examination. So stay tuned. So let's start with the first topic, that is India slipped to 6th largest economy. The context of this topic is that India has fallen to being the world's 6th largest economy according to the latest GDP data from International Monetary Fund. And this particular topic is related to GS Paper 3, Growth and Development. And if you see the earlier position in 2022, India overtook UK to become the 5th largest economy. And subsequently, there were expectations that India will also be overtaking Japan by 2029. And eventually we will also be overtaking Germany. But now there has been a temporary reversal that we are witnessing with regard to the GDP data that are released by IMF. So is it a cause of concern? Because earlier when we were growing, we were getting good ranks in the IMF data, there were a lot of appreciations. But now there are some people who are criticizing that Indian economy is shrinking or it is contracting because we have slipped to being the 6th largest economy. So what is the current status? That is, we are the 6th largest economy as per the IMF data, and this is the nominal GDP figures. GDP is the total monetary value of all the goods and services that are produced in the domestic territory during a financial year. And we calculate this GDP on the current prices as well as on the prices that are fixed or chosen from a base year. For example, let's suppose 10 chocolates are being produced in any particular economy and the price of each chocolate is 10 rupees. So at that point of time, the total GDP is 100 rupees. There are no other goods or services that are being produced in the economy, only the chocolates. And let's suppose this is the year of 2024 where the 10 units of the chocolates were produced and the price of each chocolate was 10 rupees. So 100 rupees was the GDP figures. Then let's suppose we have chosen this 2024 as a base year. In 2025, let's suppose 20 chocolates are being produced and the cost of each chocolate is 20 rupees. So this 20 rupees is the current price, that is the price of the 2025. If we are calculating this GDP at the current prices, which is unadjusted for the inflation, in that particular case, that will be the case of the nominal GDP. So 20 into 2400 rupees will be the nominal GDP, which is calculated at current prices, which is unadjusted for the inflation. But if we have adjusted the inflation numbers, if we have taken the figure from a base year, that is, if let's suppose the number of units that are produced in 2025 is 20, but if we are taking the prices from the base year of 2024 itself, that is 10, so 20 into 10 will be 200, that is the GDP which is adjusted for inflation, that is your real GDP. Right. So here, based on the nominal GDP figure, we are the 6th largest economy. The GDP of 2025 was $3.92 trillion, 2026 $4.15 trillion, and for 2027 the projections are that we will be at $4.27 trillion, that is behind Japan as well as UK. So why exactly this happened? Why we have slipped down in this particular ranking? First of all, we have gone with the GDP revision. So the new GDP series data were released a few weeks back. So the major changes that were done in the GDP revision, for example, the base year, that here for example we have taken 2024 as a base year. Here also the base year was changed from 2011-12 to 2025-26. Along with that, various other changes were done with regard to the methodology with the help of which we were calculating the GDP. For example, the sector's contribution or the weightage that are given to each sector. For example, earlier in the earlier GDP calculation, agriculture was given more weightage, but that has been rationalized now with regard to the more contribution that is being made by the manufacturing and the services sector. Along with that, there has been various other changes or the rejig that has been done with regard to the GDP calculation. And that is one of the prime reason why we are witnessing a lower numbers in the GDP. It is not in the true sense that our economy is contracting or our economy is not growing at the rate which it was doing earlier. Rather, it is only the calculation methodology which has been changed, and this is the impact of that calculation methodology or the rejig that we have done in the calculation methodology. So earlier estimates that we were taking into account, that has to some extent overestimated the GDP. And with the revision, for example, 357 trillion rupees has came to 345 trillion rupees only. And this has been mainly because of the new methodology, new changes that we have introduced. Also, you people might be aware of the fact that few months back, IMF gave the C rating to the national accounting system that India is using. And what they said? In their report, they said that whatever the national accounting system that India is using, for example, the GDP numbers that are coming, they are not in sync with the current trends. They are overestimating the GDP. Why? Because our base year was outdated, because our base year was 2011-12. At that point of time, when IMF gave us C rating. Along with that, they also said the inflation that is being calculated, that is also not properly updated. For example, the base year for CPI was also outdated. The basket with the help of which we are calculating the CPI, that is also outdated. So we have done changes for the CPI calculation also. For example, base year for CPI is also changed to 2024. The basket based on which we are calculating the CPI, that has also been changed. For example, now this basket is based on household consumption expenditure survey. Simply whenever CPI is being calculated, which is an index that is showing that whatever the price changes is happening according to the consumer point of view. So there is a basket that is kept, and whatever the changes will happen with regard to the commodities that are kept in the basket, that will show whether the CPI is increasing or decreasing. But earlier, this basket was according to what people were consuming few years back, but now people are consuming differently. For example, people are going for watching movies, people are taking OTT subscriptions, etc., which was not the case 1 decade back. So that is the reason, according to household consumption expenditure survey, now this basket will be kept, and that will give us a data about the CPI. So earlier IMF gave the C rating, and now when we have done the changes with regard to the national accounting system, CPI numbers, etc., there has been a negative result that we have got, or unintended result that we have got with regard to the lower number in the GDP. Also, another important reason why we are witnessing a little decrease in the numbers for the GDP is the currency effect. For example, as compared to major currencies of the world, rupee depreciated significantly vis-a-vis the US dollar. For example, the IMF, the methodology that they are using, that they are calculating the GDP in US dollar terms. For example, let's suppose in any 1 year, 400 rupees was the GDP that was in the rupee terms. At that point of time, currency exchange was at 50 rupees per $1. Okay. And now if we want to convert this 400 rupees in GDP, so we'll divide it by 50 and it will come to $8. Okay. So $8 is the GDP for any particular year when the GDP was 400 rupees, and at that point of time currency exchange rate was 50 rupees per dollar. But due to the impact of the currency depreciation, let's suppose currency depreciated to 80 rupees per dollar. In that particular case, and now let's suppose the GDP is still same, that is your 400 rupees only. If we'll divide 400 by 80, it will come at $5 only. Earlier it was $8, but now it has came down to $5. Why? Because earlier currency exchange rate was 50 rupees per dollar, but now currency exchange rate is 80 rupees per dollar. And because of only the impact of the currency depreciation, we are witnessing a reduced number of the GDP in the dollar terms. So currently, in the last few years, because of the supply chain disruptions which has been witnessed, for example, earlier Russia-Ukraine war is going on, then US and Israel bombed various nuclear sites of the Iran, then subsequently the US and Israel attacked Iran, and that war also kept on going for weeks, and then Strait of Hormuz was blocked, which also disrupted the supply of the crude oil, natural gas, etc., for which India is significantly dependent on the imports itself. For example, 85% of our crude oil needs are being fulfilled by the imports itself. And when we are significantly dependent on the imports, whenever supply chain disruptions happens in the major parts of the world, then imports become costlier. When imports become costlier, that means we are paying more from our pocket. Along with that, when our exports are not that competitive that can yield us better earnings, then because of all these reasons, currency depreciates. Along with that, the capital flight that we were witnessing, that outflow of the capital, for example, the foreign portfolio investors who invest in Indian stock market of the capital market, they sold their stakes to a historic high. So because of all these reasons, we have seen the slide in the rupees or the currency depreciation. And due to this currency depreciation, the number that we are getting in the dollar terms with regard to our GDP has also declined. And that is also one of the reasons why we are witnessing a decrease in the ranking in the with regard to the GDP data of the IMF. So with the lower nominal GDP ranking, our rank has declined. And other currencies like pound, yen, etc. hasn't declined to that extent which Indian rupee has declined. So because of that, there has been an advantage to them, and they were able to maintain their positions, and also they were able to surpass India. And if you see that whether this is a cause of concern or worry, so if you see the recovery outlook, that narrow gap is there. For example, India 2026 was around $4.15 trillion, Japan 4 trillion. Top economies are US with a $32.85 trillion, China is around $20.85 trillion. The projection is that we will be re-overtaking Japan soon, because the difference between India and Japan is not that high. Okay, India is around $4.1 trillion and UK is around $4.3 trillion and Japan is around 4.4 trillion. Also, the growth rate of India is comparatively way higher than what Japan and UK is there. So we will be able to easily surpass the UK and Japan in the coming months if there is no major worry that is coming in front of India. Also, the core insight of this particular data or ranking is that there is no real slowdown or contraction that we are witnessing in the economy. Rather, it is because of the statistical revision that we have done. For example, sometimes let's suppose we are getting 10,000 rupees as the pocket money, and then when we by the end of the month, when we start calculating our overall expenditure, there are times where we were not able to recall some of the amounts that at what place we have spent that. Okay? Then when we again put a lot of focus on our mind, we try to recall, then subsequently we'll be able to get some of the expenditures that we have done, but still we were not able to calculate all the 10,000 rupees. But if we start only paying by the UPI itself, so it will be much easier for us to keep a tab of whole 10,000 rupees that we are spending. What we did, we have just changed the methodology. Instead of cash payment, now we are doing the online payment itself. And now probably we'll be able to keep a tab on all the expenditure, all the 10,000 expenditure that we have done. So to ensure that we are not overestimating our GDP, to ensure our GDP calculation is according to the current trends, and that is also following the overall global trends, we have changed the methodology. But this is one of the unintended result of that revision, that we have seen a slowdown or we have seen a reduced numbers. But that is not a cause of worry, because slowly and gradually we will get accustomed to these figures itself, and now with the better data and comprehensive data that will start coming from all the sectors, probably will be able to overtake UK and Japan soon in the upcoming months. But the exchange rate impact, for that we need structural changes, for that we need to take various measures that we will also be discussing in the upcoming few minutes, that what are the various measures that we can take to address the underlying issues, with the help of which sustainably we can grow our economy, plus we can also address the slide in the exchange rate that we are witnessing, or the currency depreciation that we are witnessing. Also, other concerns, if you see, so the long-term growth is still intact, that is not a cause of worry. Other concerns for the Indian economy, that the growth momentum is slowing down. For example, that around 2011-12, we were consistently growing at 7-8%. But now, since 2014, GDP growth has hovered around 6%, which is lower than the pre-2008 global crisis, where we were growing at around 8 to 9%. Also, we are way behind the China. For example, in 2014, India's GDP was around $2.1 trillion, and it is projected to hit around $4.1 trillion by the financial year end. China, by comparison, has jumped from $1.9 trillion in 2004 to 4.6 trillion in 2008 in just 4 years itself. Whereas we took around more than 12 years, more than 10 years to double our economy, which the China did in only 4 years itself. Also, the trade weaknesses that we are witnessing. For example, India's share of the global exports for goods, it is just 1.8%. For services, it is just 4.5%. So when we are not part of our global exports, then to get maximum earning from the export is also very difficult. Also, the structural issues in the economy, the protectionist policies, they are limiting the competitiveness, where we are not opening our economy per se. From economy in distress, majority of the population is in rural or the agriculture sector. For example, agriculture is contributing around 16.1% to GDP, and it is creating 46.1% employment as per the figure of Economic Survey 23-24. So that shows that still majority of the population is dependent on the agriculture, and that shows a high level of disguised unemployment in the agriculture. The manufacturing growth is also around at the compoundable annual growth rate is around 4.04%. That further remains sluggish. Agriculture growth had slightly been higher at 4.72%. Also, if you see the inequality in the human development, there has been skewed growth distribution, which is 24% of population is still below the World Bank poverty line. Also, the inequality that has been also very high. For example, top 1% of the population is holding more than 40% of the wealth. Also, the rising inequality, poor health and education and the nutritional outcomes, that has been also one of the major cause of concern. Then mismatch in the human capital. For example, the high level of youth unemployment that is there, which is around 6 to 7%. The unemployment rate. Along with that, the labor force participation rate of the women is comparatively lower, and underemployment is remaining high. And especially there has been one of the article also in today's The Hindu, that how sensitive our overall industries are. Because of the Iran disruptions that we have seen, there has been delays in the payment of the wages, because the companies were not getting the raw materials properly. When they were not getting the raw materials, they were not able to produce, they were not able to supply the products, they had a poor inventory, and that has been one of the major reason why there has been delay in the payments of the wages, etc., to the workers, and now they started protesting. So we have a case where we have the skill mismatch. Demand of the industry is something else, whereas what is being supplied by the industry, by the youth, what is being supplied by the universities, what is being supplied by the youth is something different. The industries are demanding artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, big data analytics, etc., blockchain technology, whereas the curriculum is not well updated according to the current needs. Along with that, there has been poor alignment with the education and the jobs, that whatever the jobs are demanding, education is not providing that. Even with after the graduation, people are not having that skill which can make them employable. And that is the reason they are in underemployment stage, that they are not getting employment according to their qualification, according to their skills. And that is one of the reasons why Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister said that in India, we need skill census. That is more important rather than caste census, because with skill census probably we will be able to bring a proper match between what the people have and what is being demanded by the industry. Now, what should be done? What should be the way forward? First of all, the deregulation of the growth. The deregulation is streamlining the business processes. So here, slowly and gradually, we should identify that how we can further deregulate the overall businesses and the industries, because of the lot of rules, regulations at the center and the state levels that are there. It creates a problem for them, because it becomes a burden for them to comply with all those rules, regulations, the norms that are in place. So if we will be deregulating that, if we will be streamlining the business processes, it will be much easier for the industries to produce more, which will ultimately contribute to our overall growth story. Also, enhance the export and the trade policy. For example, we can sign various trade agreements which we have done significantly in last few months. For example, we have finalized our free trade trade agreement with UK. Similarly, we have signed with various other countries also. We are in line to sign the FTA with the Gulf Cooperation Council and various other groupings. We have also signed an interim deal with the USA and still not the final deal. So what we need that when we will sign certain trade agreements, it will help us in better market access to these countries, and probably our export potential will further increase. But another issue is the export competitiveness because of poor sanitary and the phytosanitary measures which are in place. For example, our masalas are being sent back because of the presence of ethylene oxide beyond permissible limit. Our mangoes are being sent back by the countries because of the presence of the residues of the pesticides beyond permissible limit, and that attracts a negative image to our products, and because of that our products become less competitive in the global market. So we have to ensure that our trade policy is getting enhanced. We are signing better trade agreements which is providing us better market access. More than that, we also need to have the proper awareness generation, proper capacity building of the industries to make them export competitive. Also, improved hiring and the compensation policy. For example, employment linked incentive scheme that was launched by the government. Under this employment linked incentive scheme, the first time employees and the formal employees, the formal employees and the employers who are giving the employment will be getting certain support from the government, cash benefits from the government. So this will also promote the more formal employment where the proper social security benefits will be there, where regulated working hours will be there, where the proper salaries will be disbursed in a time bound manner, and in that particular case the worker will also be finding it easy to give their 100% in producing the goods or in contributing to the overall growth of that industry. Also, increasing investment in the infrastructure, that will also accelerate the economic growth. A simple example, for example, if there is an expressway that is being built, that is an infrastructure building that is being done, there will be more industries that will come in the periphery, there will be hospital, education institutes and other infrastructure that will come near that expressway, and that will create employment, and when the employment will be generated, the people will have more money in their hands that they will be spending in the economy, and that will increase the overall consumption expenditure, and that can subsequently further contribute to overall GDP growth. For example, almost 111 lakh crore rupees of infrastructure by 2025 as per the National Infrastructure Pipeline. Pradhan Mantri Gati Shakti that is providing the multi-modal connectivity, strengthening the trade agreements on the market access. For example, export growth of around 7.9% in financial year 2023. So with the better trade agreement, market access probably will be able to have better export growth, and that can subsequently contribute to overall GDP growth. Why? Because when there are three methods by which we can calculate the GDP. One is the value added method, where we are looking up to all the value addition which has been done by for all the economic activity for all the sectors of the economy. Then subsequently we have the GDP calculation by income method, where we are adding all the income which is generated by four factors of production, that is land, labor, capital and entrepreneurship. The four factor payments: for land we get rent, for capital we get interest, for labor we get wages, and for entrepreneurship we are getting profits. So when we are adding this rent, wages, interest as well as the profits, we get the GDP by the income method. And then we have the GDP by expenditure method, where we are adding the expenditure which is done by the four components, that is household consumption expenditure, that is the expenditure being done by me and you; private investment, that is the whatever the businesses, corporations, etc. are doing for the investment; and then government spending, that is whatever they are doing the expenditure for the payments of the wages, etc., or whatever the infrastructure building related expenditure they are doing, plus net of export. So when there is infrastructure building that is being done, that will contribute to greater GDP numbers, plus employment generation, more consumption expenditure, more GDP growth, plus export competitiveness is increasing, so export will increase, so that will also contribute to the GDP growth. We need to promote the digital economy and the innovation, because it will drive the productivity and the growth. With the same capital, we will be able to grow products in a better manner, plus we will be able to bring products at a competitive prices, and which will also further make our products competitive at the global market, as well as the export potential of the products will further increase. Also, strengthening manufacturing in the Make in India. Focus is on manufacturing and the industrial output. Manufacturing sector is contributing around 16.3% to the GDP. As per our national manufacturing target also, national manufacturing plan target also, we have to increase this particular target. So there is potential for the manufacturing sector, and that has to be properly achieved in the upcoming times with the proper policy support as well as proper hand holding and capacity building. Boosting human capital development with the improvement in the education, health, skilling, etc., with the proper revision of the curriculum, a proper implementation of the national education policy, proper skill building. For example, the schemes like Pradhan Mantri Kausal Vikas Yojana, etc., needs to have a proper oversight mechanism to ensure that they are being implemented in letter and spirit. And with the better education, skill training and the healthcare, probably we will be able to improve overall human capital. Then skilled workforce, that is driving the labor productivity, that whatever the workforce is there, if they are having the proper skill sets, then probably they will be able to help in driving the overall productivity of the labor. And this is a mains practice question that you people can write from this particular topic. Moving towards our next topic, that is why women's reservation cannot wait any longer. And the context of this topic is that in today's The Hindu newspaper, there is an editorial which is emphasizing on the point why there is a need to provide women reservation to ensure their overall representation. And recently, the women's quota bill was also presented in the Lok Sabha, which fails to get 2/3 of majority, and subsequently other related bills like delimitation, etc., were also withdrawn. And this particular topic is related to your GS paper 1, issues related to women, role of women in women's organization, GS paper 2, Indian Constitution, election and statutory bodies. If you see the current status of the representation, or what exactly numbers are saying, so the state assemblies are representing around 9% of women, whereas parliament is representing around 14 to 15%. For example, 74 women MPs are part of the current 18th Lok Sabha, which is around 13.6%, and 78 women MPs were part of the 17th Lok Sabha, which was around 14.4%. So that shows that we have seen a decline from 17th Lok Sabha to 18th Lok Sabha. Also, if you see the share of women in the Lok Sabha from the first Lok Sabha till 17th Lok Sabha, there hasn't been a steady increase that we were expecting. Rather, the growth is completely haphazard. For some of the years, it has marginally increased, and then in the upcoming years, it has saw a decline. And if you see the party-wise share in the Lok Sabha as the percentage, so TMC, which is the ruling party in the West Bengal, where elections are also happening at time, which is being headed by the Chief Minister of the West Bengal, Mamata Banerjee. So here also, if you see the women MPs from TMC, most of the MPs from TMC are women itself. So TMC is one of the party having the highest party-wise share in the Lok Sabha as a percentage of women MPs, and subsequently all other parties has a lower percentage. And if you see the women MLAs as a percentage, so except Chhattisgarh, no other assembly has over 15% of women MLAs. And that shows a clear underrepresentation, because women are representing around 50% of population. And when they are hardly getting the 20% representation in the legislative assemblies or in the Lok Sabha, that shows clear underrepresentation, and it will have the widespread repercussions. For example, when they are not being represented, their voices will not be shaped in the laws, in the policies that will be formed in a manner that it should be done. Along with that, the issues related to women, issues related to the females, that will not be shaped in a manner that it should be. And if you see the global trends, the women parliamentarians as a percentage. So Rwanda is a country having around 63.8%. Even our lovely neighbor Pakistan has a representation of around 21.7%. Whereas India is having around 13.6 to 13.8%. Out of around 190 countries, India is ranking 147 in terms of women representation in parliament. That shows a clear underrepresentation plus an abysmal condition that we are witnessing in this domain. What are the reasons for the low representation? First is the socio-cultural barriers. For example, the patriarchal norms are restricting the women's political participation. The patriarchy, the inherent patriarchy, where it is presumed that men are suitable for instrumental roles and women are suitable for expressive roles. And clearly, the political positions are considered as instrumental role, where female have to go outside of the home. So the inherent patriarchy, which tries to keep women within the doors within the four walls of the houses itself. That limits the representation or the chances of women in taking participation in the political positions. And lower economic independence and mobility, that when women are not doing jobs properly, their labor force participation rate is less. They are not completely independent with regard to the economic matters. So there is a dependency that they have on the men, and that is the reason when men will not like or men will not want that females should participate in the elections, probably their chances will be less. And despite this, female voter turnout is around male turnout 65% as per the Election Commission of India. So their voter turnout is good, but they are not able to get the tickets, they are not able to secure the political positions. And also the other reasons are interrelated. For example, political party gatekeeping, that generally what we witness, that the normal citizens are not getting the tickets, rather the people who have spent some time in the party are getting the tickets. And when women are not getting the positions in the party because of the lack of intra-party democracy, lack of democracy within the party, their chances of getting tickets or their chances to contest elections becomes further less. For example, women candidates are only around 9 to 10% of the total candidates, and parties are reluctant to give tickets in a winnable seats, and most parties are giving less than 15% of their total tickets to women. When they are not getting tickets, when they are not contesting the elections, how we can expect that they will get the representation? Also the electoral system, the first past the post system, where it is favoring the established candidates, the candidates who have already spent a lot of time at the political positions in the state politics or in the local politics, etc. Male members generally spend more time, and that is the reason they have a better networking, better connectivity, and people generally prefer those male candidates as compared to females. And money and muscle power, the inherent money involved in the elections, the fightings, etc., or the violence that we witness, which further diminishes or which further demotivates the females to take participation in the politics. Financial constraints, the high cost of the elections, the reported cost of the elections is way less as compared to what is the actual expenditure which is being done by the contesting people. So female do not have the financial independence, and with the limitation of the money and the finances that they have, this further creates a problem where the women will have less access to the funding networks, and probably they will also not able to secure the tickets based on which they can contest. Safety and the harassment issues, consistently we keep on witnessing in the news that there has been electoral violence, online abuse, character attacks that keeps on happening, the online trolling, digital trolling, etc. that happens, that further discourages or motivates the women for the entry as well as for the continuity in the politics, in the elections. Weak internal party democracy or the intra-party democracy that we have discussed, that there is centralized ticket allocation, lack of proper bottom to top feedback that is there, that if a female is working very hard in their constituency, but still if the tickets are going to be distributed based on the high command or the central position holders of a political party, then probably the females have the less chance, because it is the male members which are deciding who will be getting the tickets. Preference for the dynastic or the elite candidates, because they have the money and muscle power, their winnability is comparatively high as compared to the new candidates. So that is also one of the reasons why party prefer these male members who have significantly spent their life in the politics, whether the state politics, national politics or the local politics. And the weak political pipeline, that for example women in panchayats are around 44 to 46%, and that has been also possible because of the 73rd and 74th amendment that was done. So there is poor transition from local to the national level. Why? Because they further face harassment and safety concerns at the local level itself, and that further discourages them to participate in the future electoral carriers. And that has been also one of the reasons why we have the poor rank in the global gender gap index that is released by World Economic Forum. So here you can see the global India's score with regard to the different sections that are part of the global gender gap, different components: economy, education, health and politics. So in the political empowerment we have a very poor score and very poor rank also. ठीक है. And why the rank is little better as compared to health and survival? Because generally other countries are performing way poor. So in politics and in empowerment, our score is less, but our rank is little better as compared to other like economic participation, education, health, etc. Because other countries are performing way well in economy, education and health, and that is the reason we have a lower rank. But the other countries are also not performing that well in political empowerment. That is the reason we have a better rank, but the score is very poor, and that is because of the political underrepresentation. Along with that, the consistent crimes or violence against women cases that we keeps on witnessing. For example, around 31,516 cases of rape were reported in 2022 as per the NCRB. That means one case every 16 minutes is being reported related to the rape, and we are not accounting the unreported case of the female violence or the rape. So because of all these cases, violence, etc., women are further demotivated and discouraged to participate in the politics. So what is the state versus national level concern? If there will be low state level representation, there will be grassroots policy impact. For example, state governments are handling health, education, law and order, local development, etc. And parliament's 14 to 50% also is the below global norms. And when women are not being represented properly, the concerns related to health, education, law and order of the women will probably not get proper share or the shape according to in a way that it should get. For example, if there are concerns related to menstrual hygiene, if there are concerns related to menstrual leaves, so probably a female can understand that better, and probably they can help in better policy making, they can help in better schemes designing, they can help in better laws and the regulations for this. And also it is weakening the legitimacy and inclusiveness of the democracy, that when the 50% of the population is not getting represented properly, then that shows that lack of inclusivity and as well as the legitimacy of the democracy is not getting in true sense. Or why delay is problematic? Why this delay is problematic? Because women's aspirations are rising. Now we are seeing them at the instrumental positions, be it the fighter pilot or be it the director of the Mars orbiter mission. All these are the females itself, and that is the reason they want to take significant positions in the politics also. They have the significant position in education, workforce. They are slowly and gradually getting better awareness with regard to their rights. And when there is delay in their political representation, that is leading to frustration as well as disengagement. Also, voluntary party reform is ineffective. For example, parties are promising more tickets, but women candidates remain low. Structural issues needs legislative solutions, because when there will be legislative solution, then parties will not have any other option rather to give the tickets to the women candidates itself. Core argument is not the deepening democracy. Rather, we have to see that voting is not equal to empowerment. True empowerment is only when seat is at the decision making table. They are part of the parliament. They are part of the ministries, the council of ministers. They are taking the lead positions. Only then they will be able to significantly participate or substantially participate in the decision making. Also, developmental argument, for example, gender inclusive governance is leading to better policies, improved social indicators as well as sustainable growth, and excluding women will lead to inefficient as well as unjust policy and growth. So what is the path ahead? We should implement the Women Reservation Act of 2023. We should fast track the consensus delimitation to operationalize the 33% quota. There is need for women reservation bill that was lapsed recently to pass, and along with that delimitation, etc. bill has to be passed with a special majority to implement this reservation in a letter and spirit. Mandatory party quotas, for example, we can make a law, or legal or voluntary mandates can be there to give less than or equal to 33% tickets to women itself. That is like some European models where they are mandatorily giving the tickets to the women candidates. Financial and the campaign support, for example, state funding, subsidies or dedicated election funds for the women candidates. They will also ensure that more women are motivated to participate in the politics. We need to strengthen the political pipeline like panchayats, then from there to the state politics, then to the parliament. Because without progression, without networking, without mentorship, they will find it very difficult to win in the parliament elections. Then internal party reforms, for example, promotion of internal democracy, transparent ticket allocation, that will reduce the dynastic bias. Capacity building and leadership training, for example, programs for campaign management, public speaking, policy skills. All this will also help in ensuring that there is a proper leadership that we are witnessing. Safe political environment, for example, strict action on violence, online harassment. This will ensure that there is secure campaigning that is happening. Awareness and the social change, for example, promoting the women's leadership through education, media, role models, etc. All this will motivate the women to further participate and take positions in the politics, which is the need of hour. Also, there has been various questions which has been asked from this particular section of women empowerment, and this is also one of the mains practice question that you people can write from this particular topic. Moving towards our prelims pointers section that we have introduced considering your upcoming prelims examination 2026. So here the first topic is the Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board, which is related to your GS paper 2, government policies and interventions, as well as statutory bodies. Also, this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 13, and the context of this topic is that to further strengthen the infrastructure for the LPG as well as to ensure the storage through the pipeline infrastructure, PNGRB, which is the Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board, informed that it was in process of concluding the bid proposals for 4 such pipelines which will help us in improving our infrastructure. And this Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board is a statutory regulatory body under the Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board Act of 2006, because this has been established by an act of the parliament, and that is the reason this is a statutory body. Also, it is a quasi-judicial tribunal with the power of the civil court. For example, it can summon any person. Also, the major objective of the board is to protect the consumer interests. For example, they are getting the petroleum or the natural gas at the competitive rates, to regulate petroleum and natural gas activities, promote the competition so that there is no monopoly like conditions that is being created, and also to ensure uninterrupted supply across India. Also, the dispute resolution, for example, it educates disputes and complaints, refining, storage, distribution, pricing and pipeline access, city gas network complaints, etc. All these are being seen by the Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board. Also, there is a appellate tribunal. For example, the appeals with this particular board lies with the AFTEL, that is Appellate Tribunal for the Electricity. And if you see the functions of the board, this provide consumer protection and competition. For example, they protect consumer interests, promote fair trade and competition among entities. They ensure that the ultimately petroleum and natural gas is being reached to the consumers at a competitive rate and the fair rate. Registration functions, for example, it registers entities for marketing petroleum and petroleum products and the natural gas. For example, the Hindustan Petroleum, etc. These are the entities. LNG terminals, storage facilities above specified capacity. For that also registration is given by the board. Authorization function, they authorize entities to lay, build, operate, expand the pipelines, whether it is common or contract carrier. Develop city or the local gas distribution networks, that is also been overlooked by the Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board. Pipeline regulation, declare pipelines as common or contract carriers. Access and tariff regulation, regulate the pipeline access, transportation rate, etc. Also, it provides market oversight that ensures adequate availability of petroleum and gas, ensure the MRP transparency at the retail outlets so that consumer have a clear idea on what basis he or she is being charged, monitor the price and prevent the restrictive trade practices that can restrict the supply and subsequently that can impact the prices, ensure the equitable distribution that even the marginalized section or the sections or the areas where there was no supply is also getting proper supply. Service obligation, enforce the retail service obligations, marketing service obligations, etc. Monitoring and enforcement, for example, they monitor the transportation rates which are being charged so that they are not overcharging the transportation rates, and that can significantly impact the overall prices being paid by the consumers. They also take corrective actions against the unfair practices. For example, penalties, etc. can be levied, punitive actions can be taken. Financial power, they levy fee and charges as per the regulation. Data and information, they maintain data bank on petroleum and natural gas as well as the sectors. Technical and safety regulation, they specify technical and safety standards, pipeline infrastructure, downstream sectors, etc. They also perform the additional functions assigned by the central government. And this was one of the questions that was asked in 2019. Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board is the first regulatory body set up by the government of India. You can see in 2006 there is an act that is coming to set up this Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board. How can this be a first regulatory body which is such an extreme statement that you can easily eliminate option 1, and if you are eliminating option 1 without any problem, you are getting the answer that is B, 2 and 3 only. For the rest of the options, that one of the tasks of this board is to ensure competitive market for the gas. Appeal against the decision, go for the appellate tribunal for the electricity. We have just seen both these options are correct. B, 2 and 3 only was the right answer. Similarly, another question was asked in 2025, and this is the same thing that we keep on repeating to you people, that whatever the themes which has been asked in the earlier years, they are very important for your upcoming examination. UPSC asked one of the question on the board in 2019, they are repeating in 2015. If you will be able to solve the questions that are asked in last 8 to 10 years properly, plus you will catch up those themes and you will prepare those themes properly, the chances are you will be getting a lot of questions in the actual examination, be it the 26 or 27 examination. For example, how many of activities are regulated by the Petroleum and the Natural Gas Regulatory Board in our country? Production of crude oil as well as the production of natural gas, that is incorrect. Only the refining, storage and distribution of petroleum products and marketing and the sale of petroleum products are being regulated. So B, only 2 is the right answer for the question that was asked in 2025. Moving further to our next topic, that is the Tea bodies wants the PM to end the mandatory auction, and this is related to GS paper 3, agricultural resources, cropping patterns, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu page number 4. So what are the tea auction rules issue because of which this particular topic is in news? So there are Assam tea bodies, there are various organizations, there are various bodies which are seeking for the end or the modification of the mandatory auction rules that came in 2024 or 25 orders. The mandate is that 100% dust tea plus more than 50 or equal to 50% of total tea must be sold via the auctions so that there can be a proper price discovery that can come. The problem is high cost, that is around 10 rupees per kg, which is around 5% of the price. Longer sales cycle, cost is greater as compared to profits, and slowly and gradually the tea cropping is becoming unviable. And the impact of this is there is reduced profitability and competitiveness. It is also limiting the market flexibility because mandatory it has to be sold by the auctions. And the demands are freedom to sell, whether it should be auction or by a private, that even with the private traders they can sell. This will provide the relaxations or the exemptions, or they need their demands are to provide relaxations that there should not be mandatory provision to auction only, or the exemptions are needed. Assam plus West Bengal, they are producing around 83% of the tea. South India is producing 17%. Total around 1350 million kg around is coming, and North is producing around 1120 million kg. The major issue is regulation versus market freedom in the agricultural marketing, which encompasses all activities including the storage, then the price discovery, sale of the products, etc. The tea is a crop which is a warm, moist, frost free with the frequent evenly distributed showers are needed. This is a climate that is needed for the tea. It requires 28 to 32 degrees Celsius of temperature, over 150 centimeter of rainfall annually. The standing water is very harmful near its root, and because that limits the overall oxygen supply to the roots. And it is a year-round tropical and subtropical crop, and it is a plantation crop where it is being grown in the large E states, and it is a labor intensive crop also. Why? Because it needs the plucking of tea leaves, without which the tea cannot be further processed. Major cultivation is happening in Assam, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, etc. And it requires well drained laterite soil which is rich in organic content, that is humus, and it is also rich in caffeine and tannin. And this was the question that was asked in 2022 with regard to the tea board, that it is a statutory body. So what are the commodity board? There are different commodity board which are established for the specific commodities to ensure that this particular sale or the export of the product, or in the whole supply chain starting from inputs ultimately to the sale of the product, this particular growers of the crop or the processors of the crop or the people who are in the process of that crop, they are getting proper capacity building, hand holding and support. For example, recently turmeric board has been established, and that is a non-statutory board because that hasn't been created by an act of the parliament like this particular act. Makhana board that has been established, that is also a non-statutory board because there is no act with the help of which we are creating that board. Makhana board. Last year UPSC asked one question on the turmeric because the context was the establishment of the turmeric board. This year also they may ask question on the Makhana or other commodity board. So tea board is having headquarters in Kolkata with the Governing Act of Tea Act 1953. Similarly, coffee board is having the headquarters in Bangalore. 1942 is the formation year with the Coffee Act of 1942. Rubber board, Kottayam, Kerala, 1947 formation year. Rubber Act of 1947. Spices board, Kochi, Kerala, 1987. Spices board Act of 1986. Tobacco board established in Guntur, Andhra Pradesh with the formation year of 1975 and Governing Act of Tobacco Board Act of 1975. So here the question was, tea board is statutory body, that is correct. It is a regulatory body attached to Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, that is incorrect. It is under Commerce and Industry. Tea board's head office is situated in Bangalore, that is incorrect. It is in Kolkata. Okay. If you use your common sense and logic, you can see that most of the boards are the headquarters of the board in the states where the production is very high, right? So West Bengal is one of the top tea producer, and that is the reason headquarters is in Kolkata. Similarly, the turmeric board that has been established. So Telangana is one of the top producer of the turmeric, and that is the reason Nizamabad is the headquarter of the turmeric board. So here they are mentioning Bangalore, which is in Karnataka, and Karnataka is one of the top coffee producers. Headquarters of coffee board was in Bangalore. They have just tweaked it from tea board's headquarter to the coffee board's headquarter. So this third was also incorrect. The board has overseas offices at Dubai and Moscow. That is also correct. So first and 4 was correct. D was the right answer for this particular question that was asked in 2022 prelims examination. Our next topic is Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha, and the context is that Shri Harivansh ji was elected unopposed for a third consecutive term as the Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha, and this has made him the first nominated member to occupy the chair of the Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha. And this is related to GS paper 2, Parliament and Indian Constitution, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 12. So, the Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha is the second in command presiding officer of the Rajya Sabha. He presides in the absence of the Chairman of the Rajya Sabha, which is the Vice President of India. He also ensures order, decorum and smooth legislative functioning of the House. And also, he is elected by the Rajya Sabha from its own members itself. And the election for the majority required for the election of the Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha is the simple majority itself, and election is presided by the Chairman or the Vice President of India, and he regulates proceedings of the Rajya Sabha, okay, not the Lok Sabha. He only regulates the proceedings of the Rajya Sabha. He maintains order, discipline and rules. He conducts debates and legislative business. He ensures efficient functioning of the Rajya Sabha. And also, there is no separate oath that is needed by the Deputy Chairman. Only the oath as a member will help in getting elected as the post of the Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha. And also, he vacates office if ceases to be member of the Rajya Sabha, or he is resigning and his resignation is given to the Chairman of Rajya Sabha, or if he is removed by the effective majority, that is majority of the then members. He and his tenure is co-terminus with the Rajya Sabha members. If his Rajya Sabha member is ending, so he will also be, his Deputy Chairman office will also be ending. He will also have to leave the office of the Deputy Chairman. And also, if he is resigning or removed by the effective majority, he will have to vacate the office. And also, he is acting as a chairman when the office of chairman is vacant, or vice president acts or the discharge duties of the president, or if the chairman is absent, in that case he will be acting as the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. And also, he will be presiding over the joint sitting if the speaker and the deputy speaker are absent, because chairman cannot preside over the joint sitting. And he will also have the same power as the chairman whenever he is presiding. He will not vote in the first instant, but he can exercise the casting vote. When not presiding the chair, he actually acts as an ordinary member of the Rajya Sabha who can speak, participate and vote normally. He is directly accountable to the Rajya Sabha. He is not subordinate to the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. The salaries and the allowances are fixed by the parliament and they are charged on the consolidated fund of India. That means it is not votable. He ensures orderly functioning of the house. He maintains the decorum in the house, maintains continuity in the absence of chairman, and plays role in the parliamentary committees as well as security. Our next topic is co-location in the commodity market, which is related to GS paper 3 capital markets, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 13. So the Association of NSE Members of India urges faster reforms in the commodity markets. What is your commodity market? This is a market which involves the trade of the raw materials like the agro products, metals, energy via the physical trade or the derivatives. Derivatives are the contracts which are deriving their value from the underlying assets. It can be the stock or it can be the commodities itself. So commodity market involves the trade of the agro products, energy or metals or the derivatives of them. And the major demands of this association is faster rollout of the co-location in the commodity market. What is the co-location? Simply, it is a facility that is offered by the National Stock Exchange, which is one of the marketplaces where the various instruments are traded, and this facility is being offered since 2019. And under this particular facility, it is allowing the brokers to place their server inside the exchange data centers where the exchange is actually happening. And what are the benefits of this? It will help in reducing the latency. That means there will be faster order execution. For example, whenever you are trading or you are placing your order, until and unless you have placed the order at a particular price, you will not see that your order is getting executed at that particular price. Why? Because even in a fraction of second, the prices of the commodities or the prices of the instruments which are being traded under the NSE changes. So when there will be a co-location, the server will also be there inside the exchange data center. The latency, the time that it will take to execute an order will be very less, and that will help in saving the people's money as well as the profitability of the people will increase. And it also provides early access to buy or the sell order, and it also provides the market data advantages. It is not illegal, it is permitted globally as a paid service allowed in India by the SEBI in 2008. Issue is arising only when there is unfair preferential access or the misuse that occurs at the point. For example, it is creating speed advantage, that is providing potential inequality, that some of the people who have been given this facility are getting the better execution of the order as compared to other people. So that is in a way bringing inequality. It may lead to market manipulation concern, information asymmetry also. And NSE, it is one of the India's two major exchanges. Another is the Bombay Stock Exchange. It is also India's largest financial market, fourth largest globally by the trading volume, the volume that is traded on this. And it is also pioneer in fully automated electronic trading. India plays a central role in the price discovery and the liquidity of the bonds, stocks. Also, with the faster rollout of the co-location in the commodity markets, it will help in saving the money. It will help in the faster execution of the whatever the orders that will be placed. Also, action on the dormant demat accounts which are non-functional, that earlier the people were keeping the physical certificates of the shares, but now it has been kept in the demat account or the dematerialized form, which is the electronic form in which shares are being kept. Optimization of the taxes of the securities transaction tax as well as commodities transaction tax, which is levied whenever the person is trading. The rationalization of weekly expiry days, investor protection by curbing the misuse of demat or PAN KYC lending. Institutional engagement will engage with the Ministry of Finance, SEBI, RBI. There are other issues which are highlighted. For example, the commodity derivatives are underdeveloped versus the equities derivatives. Intermediary participation data shows that equity brokers are around 4,936, commodity derivatives 2,012, interest rate derivatives 1,513, debt segment only 741. So core concern is market expansion has occurred, but activity is concentrated in limited segments. The commodity markets are not getting its own share or due share. There has been less focus on providing more facility to the commodity markets which are needed by the people who are in the commodity market. Our next topic is anticipatory bail, which is related to GS paper 2, fundamental rights, judiciary. This has appeared in today's Indian Express, page number 7. So the term bail originated from an old French verb bailer, which means to give or to deliver. Bail is the conditional provisional release of a person held under the legal custody in matters which are yet to be pronounced by the court by undertaking a promise to appear in the court as and when required. And it signifies the security or the collateral that is deposited before the court for the release. For example, the court can say deposit 50,000 or 1 lakh rupees and then bail will be provided. And there are around 4 types of the bail in India. Default bail, which is a right to bail that occurs when the police fails to complete investigation within a specified period in respect of the person in judicial or the police custody. It is also called as statutory bail. This is the right of the person. If the police will not be able to file the charges, they will not be able to complete the investigation. In that particular case, it is the complete right of the person to get the bail, because it was the inefficiency of the police itself. Also, at the end of the specified period, if the investigation is not complete, the court shall release the person if he is prepared and does furnish the bail, that whatever the bail provisions are there, for example some deposits etc., if the person is furnishing, he will get the bail. Regular bail is generally granted to a person who has been arrested or is in police custody. A bail application can be filed for the regular bail under section 437 and 439 of the CRPC. Then interim bail, that is the type of bail which is granted for a short period of time by the court till the application seeking the anticipatory bail or the regular bail is pending before a court. Then anticipatory bail, which is the bail granted under section 438 of the CRPC, either by the Sessions Court or by the High Court. An application for the grant of anticipatory bail can be filed by the person who discerns that he may be arrested by the police for the non-bailable offence, that in future the person might be arrested. So he is taking the bail beforehand itself, that is your anticipatory bail. So under BNSS, we have from 478 to 488 various sections that cover the bail provision. For example, section 478 under the Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita talks about the bail in the bailable offence, which is a right that bail must be granted by the magistrate. 479 bail to indigent person, and then 480 bail in non-bailable offences, 481 that is bail on the delay for the under trial. Then anticipatory bail is provided under 482 of the BNSS. Similarly, other bails are covered under the various sections of the BNSS. And then if you see the CRPC section of 436, which was covering the bailable offence, is under 478 of BNSS. 437 talked about non-bailable offence, is now covered under 480 of the BNSS. Anticipatory bail, which was covered under 438, is now covered under 482 of the BNSS. And then other sections like 167 subclause 2 of the CRPC, which was talking about the default bail, is now the section 187 of Bharatiya Nyaya Suraksha Sanhita, that is BNSS. That is all from today's Analyst. Thank you very much. All the very best. Keep studying.